Welcome to Ping 24 Updates, your daily dose of what's happening around the world. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The Charlevoix G7 summit in July 2025 was marked by tension, not unity. What was once a gathering of the world's most powerful democracies, united by shared values and common goals, now felt more like a stage for discord and uncertainty. The atmosphere in the summit hall was thick with unease, as leaders exchanged wary glances and avoided the easy camaraderie of previous years. The iconic photo of smiling leaders felt hollow, masking deep divisions. Behind those carefully arranged smiles there was a sense that the old bonds of trust had frayed. The photo, meant to symbolize unity, instead became a symbol of the growing rift within the group. News headlines captured the mood. G7 unity cracks, leaders fail to find common ground. Around the world, analysts and citizens alike watched with concern as the summit's failures dominated the news cycle, raising questions about the future of global cooperation. The United States, once the group's anchor, now stood apart, its protectionist policies and tariffs isolating it from even its closest allies. The U.S. delegation's stance on trade and international agreements sent shockwaves through the summit, leaving other nations scrambling to adjust to a new reality. American delegates focused on domestic issues, leaving a leadership vacuum. Their attention seemed elsewhere, as if the concerns of the global community had become secondary to internal political battles. This absence of leadership was felt acutely by the other G7 members. The Canadian Prime Minister tried to bridge the gaps, but his calls for shared values and a rules-based order fell on deaf ears. Despite passionate speeches and diplomatic efforts, the divisions proved too deep to overcome in a single weekend. European leaders, frustrated by U.S. tariffs and withdrawals from agreements, sought more reliable partners. Their conversations turned to new alliances and alternative strategies, as they questioned whether the old transatlantic partnership could survive these turbulent times. The silence in key discussions spoke volumes. Paths were diverging. Where once there had been lively debate and collaboration, now there was only hesitation and uncertainty, as each nation weighed its own interests above collective action. The post-war consensus that had bound these nations was unraveling. Decades of cooperation built on the ashes of conflict seemed to be slipping away, replaced by suspicion and self-interest. For Canada, the message was clear. Relying solely on the U.S. was no longer sustainable. The time had come to rethink old assumptions and seek new partnerships, both regionally and globally. The world was changing, and old certainties were gone. New powers were rising, and the global order was being reshaped by forces beyond the control of any single nation. Canadian diplomats left the summit with a new resolve. The experience had been sobering, but it also sparked a determination to adapt, innovate, and chart a course that reflected Canada's own interests and values. A new path had to be forged, one that looked beyond the familiar. Canada began to explore deeper ties with emerging economies, seeking opportunities in Asia, Africa, and beyond, determined to build a more resilient and diversified future. The G7 summit ended not with unity, but with the quiet realization that a new era in international relations had begun. The echoes of disagreement lingered in the empty halls, a stark reminder that the world was entering uncharted territory. Canada was ready to adapt. With eyes set on the horizon, the country prepared to navigate a world where alliances would be tested, and new opportunities would emerge from the challenges ahead. While the G7 fractured, the world watched as alliances that once seemed unbreakable began to show deep cracks. The sense of unity that had defined decades of international cooperation was fading, replaced by uncertainty and hesitation. The United States, once a driving force for global leadership, turned inward, focusing its attention on domestic challenges and internal debates. Political polarization and contentious policy battles dominated the national conversation, pushing foreign affairs to the sidelines. Tariffs, introduced with the intention of protecting American industries and jobs, ended up backfiring. Trading partners retaliated, and U.S. exports became less competitive on the world stage, hurting the very sectors they were meant to help. Farmers and manufacturers, once the backbone of the American economy, struggled with lost markets and rising costs. Many faced uncertainty about their future, as global demand for their products dwindled. Ambitious plans to reshore manufacturing and rebuild the nation's aging infrastructure stalled amid deep political gridlock. Promises of revitalization gave way to frustration as projects were delayed or abandoned. Meanwhile, Asia and Europe pressed forward, signing new trade deals and strengthening their economic ties. The US withdrew from major pacts like the TPP, leaving its businesses isolated and at a growing disadvantage. American exporters now faced higher tariffs in key Asian markets, while competitors from Canada and Japan surged ahead, capturing opportunities that once belonged to the US. The promise of a manufacturing renaissance was only partially fulfilled. While some jobs returned, many communities saw little improvement, and countless Americans felt left behind by the changing economy. Rising prices at the grocery store and gas pump, combined with stagnant wages, fueled widespread frustration and anxiety about the future. The American dream, once powered by global engagement and opportunity, now seemed diminished and out of reach for many. The nation stood at a crossroads, torn between its proud legacy as a global leader and its present preoccupation with internal divisions and uncertainty about the path forward. As the G7 summit faded into the background, the world's attention shifted elsewhere. Yet, behind the scenes, a quiet but significant transformation was underway. Canadian diplomats with little fanfare began to pivot their focus eastward, charting new courses across the Indo-Pacific. Their mission: to forge fresh alliances and unlock new opportunities for Canada's future. In Jakarta, they sealed a major economic partnership with Indonesia, opening doors for Canadian expertise in infrastructure, renewable energy, and green technology. This deal not only promised growth for Canadian companies, but also supported Indonesia's ambitious development goals. In New Delhi, a landmark agreement with India focused on agricultural technology and critical minerals. Canadian grains and rare earths would now help fuel India's growing population and tech sector, creating a vital link between the two nations. In Seoul, Canada and South Korea agreed to collaborate on artificial intelligence, electric vehicle batteries, and clean energy. This partnership aimed to drive innovation and ensure both countries stayed at the forefront of tomorrow's industries. Further agreements in Singapore and Tokyo deepened ties in digital trade, investment, and advanced robotics, opening new markets for Canadian talent and technology. Each handshake wove a new thread in Canada's growing Indo-Pacific network, connecting people, ideas, and industries across continents. This wasn't about abandoning old friends or alliances, but about embracing a shifting global reality, one where cooperation and adaptability are key. While some nations built walls, Canada was building bridges, fostering understanding, trade, and shared progress. These deals created jobs at home, secured vital supply chains, and positioned Canada for success in the 21st century's rapidly changing economy. It was a bold, strategic pivot, executed with the quiet confidence and subtlety that defines Canada's approach to the world stage. Canada's new Asian partnership sparked an agricultural boom. Prairie farmers, once at the mercy of US trade policy, now found stable markets in India and beyond. Canadian lentils and peas became staples in Indian kitchens, while BC fruit growers sold premium produce to South Korea and Japan. Pork and beef industries gained access to Vietnam and the Philippines, diversifying markets and boosting resilience. The entire supply chain, from grain elevators to trucking companies, thrived, creating jobs in rural communities. Smart trade policy translated into prosperity for everyday Canadians. Government and industry worked together to meet Asian market standards. The sight of Canadian wheat bound for Indonesia became a symbol of this new era. Looking beyond traditional partners had unlocked immense potential. Canada's pivot to Asia transformed its critical minerals and clean energy sectors. Rich in lithium, cobalt, and nickel, Canada partnered with South Korea and Japan to build gigafactories for EV batteries. Instead of exporting raw ore, Canada now processed minerals at home, capturing more value and creating thousands of skilled jobs. Universities and tech startups joined the ecosystem, driving innovation in battery tech and recycling. Clean energy investments powered these new industries, making Canadian manufacturing among the world's greenest. This strategic approach contrasted sharply with US delays and fragile supply chains. Canada's direct partnerships built a resilient, self-sufficient clean energy economy. New battery plants became symbols of a forward-thinking, sustainable future. Canada's pivot wasn't just about resources, it was about the digital future. Renowned for AI research, Canada partnered with South Korea, Singapore, and Japan to turn academic strength into commercial success. Canadian AI startups collaborated with Asian tech giants on smarter manufacturing and healthcare solutions. Fintech firms found new markets in Singapore, scaling up payment and cybersecurity innovations. Talent and ideas flowed both ways, with academic exchanges and joint ventures accelerating breakthroughs in quantum computing and medicine. New tech hubs emerged across Canada, creating high-paying jobs and attracting global talent. While the US debated tech regulation, Canada built a resilient digital economy through collaboration. The result, a future-oriented, globally connected tech sector. Canada's pivot to Asia was no accident. It was the result of a deliberate Indo-Pacific strategy. Developed by diplomats and experts, the plan recognized Asia's rise and Canada's need for deep, diverse partnerships. The strategy focused on sectors where Canada excelled: clean energy, critical minerals, agriculture, and AI. It offered mid-sized Asian nations a reliable partner amid great power competition. Targeted efforts led to efficient trade deals and real economic benefits. Investments in trade offices, cultural programs, and language training helped Canadian businesses succeed. Unlike the US's reactive policies, Canada played the long game, providing stability and confidence to partners. Quiet competence and careful planning defined this new Canadian leadership. The Indo-Pacific strategy reshaped Canada's role in global trade. Pacific ports like Vancouver and Prince Rupert became vital gateways between Asia and North America. As US ports struggled, shipping lines turned to Canada for reliability. Billions were invested in expanding ports, railways, and logistics hubs, transforming Canada into a critical global supply chain link. Goods flowed efficiently between Asia and the US via Canada, while Canadian exports powered Asian economies. This infrastructure boom created jobs and boosted competitiveness. Canada was no longer just America's neighbor, it was a crossroads of global commerce. Leadership came not from rhetoric, but from effective trade facilitation. Real results benefited Canadians and partners worldwide. As of July 2025, Canada stands in quiet strength, its pragmatic strategy paying off. By forging new alliances in Asia, Canada unlocked prosperity and opportunity. Stable, well-paying jobs now span agriculture, mining, clean tech, and AI. Lower prices and efficient supply chains help families nationwide. Canada's independent, confident foreign policy has earned global respect. The US remains important, but Canada now shapes its own destiny. Adaptability and strategic engagement have made Canada a model for mid-sized powers. The path forward: continued engagement, quiet competence, and a focus on building a more prosperous, interconnected world.